Oh, hey guys. Sorry I didn't see you there. Just working on a little homework here. Well, it's super cool to see shout outs from folks all over the globe. Let me just have a look here. I've got Kenneth McAllister. Good evening from Scotland. Right on. Brantley Childs, New Hampshire. How's it going? Julio Caesar. Buenos dias to you in Brazil. Very cool. Stephen Krosky, Southampton, UK. What's up? Wolf's Creek 1 from Arizona. Love the handle. Sean Perkins in Oregon. How's it going? And Ski Bummer Dude, bonjour from Colorado. And lastly, Anne in California. How's it going? It's super cool that we all get to connect online here. So welcome back to another informative episode of CMH's virtual Heli Huddles, where we delve into the facets of helicopter skiing. This is seriously the most ski stoke you can have during your breakfast, lunch, dinner, midnight snack, wherever you're tuning in from. I'd like to introduce my co-host, Allie. Allie is our employee experience manager and takes the lead on recruiting and hiring and all things related to employee experience. She's been with CMH for 7 years now, and fun fact, steadies djembe drumming. Hi, Allie.
Hey, Brody. Thanks for that intro. Now, to learn more about our host with the most, Brody grew up in the mountains and has always had a love for the outdoors. He began his career as a hiking guide and soon after worked his way to becoming a ski guide. He's been with CMH for 9 years now and is the assistant area manager at our Bugaboo Lodge. Fun fact, Brody is also a sailor.
Well, not this time of year. The lake's frozen and the boat's put to bed, but that's okay. Also coming to you live from Bugaboo Studios, we have today's panelists. I'd like to welcome Steve, 26-year guide and area manager at our Revelstoke operation. I'd also like to welcome Chris, 22-year pilot and the 212 pilot here at the Bugaboos. Chris also works as a rescue pilot at the Alpine Helicopters base in Canmore. He performs rescue flights with Parks Canada and Kananaskis Country Public Safety. Welcome, guys. Well, that's strange. Looks like everyone's wearing Hawaiian shirts. Feeling a little tropical, are we, gang?
Also joining us today in a tropical shirt is Graham. Graham has been part of our inside sales team since 2018, and he uses his passion for tourism and heli-skiing to find the best trip options for our guests. A fun fact about Graham, he won a gold medal in snowboarding from the Ontario School Athletics Association, even though he had been disqualified. Welcome, Graham. Phil and Alex will be joining us off camera to support the online Q&A platform. They'll be answering your questions as they come in, so we encourage you to connect with them in the live chat. Any common questions will be addressed during the Q&A at the end of the event. And just like last episode, we will be asking you a skill testing question based on information in today's huddle for a giveaway. So from our friends at Yeti, we will be giving away a Rambler thermos with lid accessories, as well as a CMH neck tube. So a nice group of giveaways here today. Keep your eyes and ears peeled because one of you will be the winner.
Nice, Allie. So based on today's huddle theme of guides and pilots, I want to highlight a very special relationship between Alpine Helicopters and CMH Heli-Skiing. We've been partners in creating life-changing mountain experiences for over 40 years now. We're also the only vertically integrated operation in the world. So basically what that means is if you look at the slide here, we're owned by Altera Mountain Company, both CMH and Alpine. So in essence, we own the aircraft in which we fly. We own the facilities in which they're maintained. And we even produce proprietary parts specific to our ski program's needs. So looking a little closer at Alpine Helicopters, they have 37 aircraft in their fleet, which includes aircraft that are at their local facilities across the mountain towns in British Columbia and Alberta. Now, in our CMH fleet, we have 27 aircraft, 10 of which are the Bell 212 helicopters shown here on the screen. We have 9 Bell 407s, which are the smaller fuselage aircraft that we use for our small group 4 or 5 person programs. And as well, we have 8 206 L3s or Long Rangers. And that's a similarly shaped fuselage to the 407, but with 2 blades. And that one's specifically used for our snow safety program here at CMH. In total, there's 52 pilots from Alpine that work at CMH, and there's 38 engineers from Alpine that work with CMH. It literally takes an entire village to run a helicopter business this size.
That's right. So 3 types of helicopters and a village of incredible people. CMH is the largest employer of mountain guides in the world. In total, we have roughly 140 guiding team members each winter season. The photo on the bottom left of the slide is from the original CMH guides training at the Bugaboos in 1967, which you can compare to this recent guides training photo. Just a few more people nowadays. And we're fortunate to have an incredible amount of longevity at CMH, which has led to several sets of second generation guiding teams. The bottom right-hand photo is of our Director of Mountain Operations, Rob Rohn, with his 2 sons who have both guided with us. Ski guides have a wide range of responsibilities in order to safely lead guests in the mountains. So let's check out a video clip that highlights some of the safety work that they do.
Well, that was some super sweet ski footage of Steve and Lily and Mike from our Revelstoke operation during a poke into the terrain early season for a conditions check. I'd like to bring Steve and Chris on the screen. So, guys, I've had the pleasure of working with both of you. Steve, you were my first boss at CMH Revelstoke back in 2011. And Chris, we work together now in the Bugaboos. I think it's super cool that you both started into this industry together. Why don't you tell us more about how you met and the journey you've taken to today? Steve?
Yeah, thanks, Brody, and thanks everyone for joining us. Chris, I was thinking it's pretty amazing. Our past goes all the way back to 1991 when we did our first initial Association of Canadian Mountain Guides courses together. From there, our friendship grew. We started climbing and ski touring together. I was working at the University of Calgary at the time, and we worked together running climbing courses. We did some big ski traverses and ski touring trips together. But truly, like, outside of work is where our friendship really developed with climbing, surf trips around the world that we did together. You were the best man at my wedding, and a lot more. Yeah, it's pretty cool that we've been friends now for 30 years this year.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. I mean, yeah, it's been 30 years. I feel like we're Waldorf and Stettler from the Muppets some days. Besides working together at the University of Calgary, I know we spent years working and guiding at Yumnuska Mountain School and the Banff Cadet Camp. And like you mentioned there was a lot of climbing, ski touring, fun trips together. And we certainly started as guides together. But then in 1998, I went down the path to becoming a pilot and stepped away from guiding. I'm lucky I've managed to, stay close to the industry through my work as both a mountain rescue pilot and a heli-ski pilot, which is great.
Cool. Okay, so let me get this straight. You guys have been friends for like 30 years. So that's like since I was 6. Totally terrified watching Jurassic Park for the first time. Well, I know you both know the past the others taken in your careers to get to where you are today, but our viewers certainly don't know that history of your training and certification. Chris, can you tell everyone what it took to become a pilot?
Yeah, for sure, Brody, but let me show you a little video here first, and it's kind of my office up in the sky. Yeah, it's good to love your office, and yeah, I love watching that footage. Going back into what it takes to be a pilot, the average time is about 6 months or 100 hours of flight training, and let's be honest, this is just the beginning of learning, as so many of the skills and lessons come with experience in working the helicopter in different landscapes and environments. We do specialized training for different jobs, for example, skiing, firefighting, mountain rescue. I never like to think about it as just an apprenticeship, or it is an apprenticeship of years, really. It's one of those jobs where the learning never stops. And I like to, work the aircraft in different conditions, and we operate, and no one situation is really ever the same. So it's learning all the time. And like Steve, probably same question back to you. What's the process for somebody to become a guide today?
Yeah, Chris, there are some similarities certainly to what you've done becoming a pilot. On average, most people, it takes to become an internationally certified mountain guide takes between 4 and 6 years. There are 2 different paths that you can go down. You could become either a ski guide or a climbing guide, and in combination together, you become a full mountain guide. Initially, you're an assistant guide in each of the 2 disciplines. And then after an apprenticeship period and an opportunity with some work experience, you could then challenge the full exams in each of those 2 areas. Once that's complete, you're recognized as a mountain guide. But same thing that you mentioned. I'll be honest, your training never ends. You're constantly learning something new every day when you're out in the field. And I think it's always striving to be better at your craft.
Yeah, well put, Steve. Okay, I'm going to bring Graham onto the chat, and he's going to ask some questions that our guests regularly ask him.
Well, I got to go. I'll call you later. Hey, Brody, Steve, Chris, sorry about that. One of the most common questions we get from our guests is, do you need to take any special courses or have a certain amount of experience before you become a guide?
Well, with the guiding, Graham, yes, there are some technical courses that you need to take before you're even accepted into the guides training program. That would include like an advanced wilderness first aid course, an avalanche operations level 1 course with the Canadian Avalanche Association, and then eventually the level 2 course before you would become a full climbing or full ski guide. And then a vast array of prior experience that you've gained from field time before you'd be accepted into the program. And I think that might be the biggest hurdle for a lot of the candidates, is to gain that necessary experience before entry into the guides courses. Most people will be able to show that that experience comes from climbing and ski touring in the different mountain ranges in Western Canada, if not internationally. And I mean, it takes a little while to get there before you would even be accepted into the guides training program.
Okay, so not quite as easy as it looks. And Chris, once you become a pilot, what does it take to be a heli-skiing pilot? Is there anything unique about that versus other helicopter work?
Yeah, for sure, Graham. Thanks for the question. Yeah, it's definitely unique. I personally just have over 10,000 hours of flight time in my 22 years of flying. And it's more what you've done during this time, because each experience is different. For example, if someone was flying back and forth to an offshore platform, for example, that's almost just like being a taxi back and forth. Whereas a lot of the work we do at Alpine is quite varied, and a lot of different jobs and experience. So sometimes I think it's more about the experience of what you've done in those total hours. For example, we average just over 100 takeoffs and landings per day in the bugaboos in the winter skiing. That's just over 6,000 a winter for each pilot. And I'm guessing in my career, I probably have over 100,000 landings and takeoffs, which is also pretty crazy to be, you think of doing that much with the aircraft.
Yeah, for sure. That's a lot. And so whenever I get the chance to get out skiing with you guys, I'm always in the back of the helicopter. And I was wondering, what do you talk about up in the cockpit there when you're taking us out skiing?
Yeah, that's a really great question, Graham. I think the relationship between a pilot and guide in the cockpit is crucial to a safe and successful operation of heli-skiing. We're constantly discussing logistics of the day, weather, flying conditions, what our objectives are, for sure, and things like fuel consumption, timing of lunch, and where we'll even be setting the lunch up, the most basic things. But it's a constant dialogue, for sure.
Yeah, and Graham, you know what I would add to that too is just there's an element of trust as well. So knowing the skill level of one another and that you can rely on them and know that they're capable of the task that's being asked of them. So for example, if Chris and I are flying together and I'm using a pickup that's not commonly used in our program, he'll know that I've looked things over. I've thought about all of the different things that he needs to consider to pick up my group. And he just can count on me to make the right decisions on his behalf.
I just always assumed you guys were discussing which Hawaiian shirt you're going to wear to Tea Goody that night. But okay, last question before I head out here. I got a question for Brody. Brody, what is the ACMG and what are the other different certification levels?
Right on, Graham. Super good question. I think I'll probably Tarantino this part and take us back kind of to the beginning of modern guiding in Canada. Originally, guides were contracted by the Canadian Pacific Railway to guide train guests in the mountains surrounding the railroad. These early guides in Canada were primarily European, and they paved the way for our Canadian guides to gain experience and knowledge in our own mountains here. I'll take a moment and read a little blurb from the Association of Canadian Mountain Guides website on the formation of the association. So the Association of Canadian Mountain Guides was formed in May of 1963. The founding members included our founders here at CMH, Hans Moser and Leo Grillemar. Early on, it became obvious that many candidates seriously underestimated requirements for obtaining a guide certification. High failure rates were common, along with accusations of the ACMG being a closed shop and complaints of unrealistically high standards. A heated debate regarding the applicability of ACMG standards to mountain guiding in Canada soon ensued. As a result of this debate, a more rigorous course with a new format was developed in 1968 when apprentice guides courses and apprenticeship requirements were added. So today we have a mountain guiding stream that looks a lot like what you see here on the screen. This is taken from the ACMG's website. And basically you can start into the rock, alpine, or ski stream and take your prerequisite first aid courses and training in order to get into the apprenticeship level. And in both the alpine and ski streams, like Steve had mentioned, the Canadian Avalanche Association's industry training programs level 1 and 2 are both requirements before you can become a full guide in each discipline. And then so on and so forth to become the mountain guide. Now, if you'd like to learn more about the ACMG, there is a link in the YouTube description on the page today. So after the show, feel free to give it a click and check out more about the association. I'm going to pass things back over to Chris and Steve, and they're going to talk about ongoing training in their respective fields. Take it away, guys.
Sounds good, Brody. Excuse me. All ACMG guides are expected to do some form of yearly continuing professional development. At CMH, we're really, really lucky. We've got an incredibly supportive company that makes sure that those CPD requirements can happen every year. So that would include our annual guides training. Some of us are selected to do some advanced kind of sling rescue training that we'll talk about in a little bit. We all go to our respective areas and do an area setup with our lodge teams. And then outside of work, there are some programs that we're expected to do each year, like yearly CPR recertifications, as well as our wilderness first aid recertifications every few years. You're constantly working on your skills, keeping things fresh, and having everything feel like second nature when you're out in the field. I mean, that's what we do on the guiding side of things. And Chris, I'm going to guess that as a pilot, there's probably some similarities of kind of yearly training and things that Alpine requires of you guys.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Yeah, for sure. There's ongoing training that happens like all the time. But courses and training happen every year, from our emergency training to operational training. Recurrent training. A lot of this training starts with written tests, which we do annually, so once a year. And then we're followed by a flight test and training with the chief pilot, just to make sure we're all up to standard. Yeah, it's a lot, but it's great. And hey, Steve, here's another question for you. After 26 years at CMH, what do you think makes a good heli-ski guide?
Yeah, 26 years already. I think it comes down to having a love for the mountains and the ability to convey that feeling and pass it on to others. In fact, I think that's a critical skill, in my opinion. There are days that you're a coach, an instructor, a philosopher, and yes, even a psychologist to your guests. Instilling the passion that you have for what you do and what we get to do every day, I think is pretty easy to share that with our guests. I mean, what seems normal to us is generally kind of a mind-blowing experience for our guests. Being able to give them the best ski day of their lives, or on occasion you'll hear like, that was the best day of my life. That's incredibly rewarding and a gratifying experience. And I'll be honest, there are certainly some days that having a hint of patience on occasion doesn't hurt either. And I mean, same thing, Chris. Like, what do you think makes a great heli-skiing pilot?
Yeah, a hint of patience too. No, I think traits of a good pilot, I like to think, a good pilot or guide is one that can focus on the task at hand and doesn't get easily distracted. Both of our jobs require quite a bit of focus in assessing multiple sources of information and applying that information into making good decisions. Also, someone who can handle stress and use it in a positive way and see the big picture, so you don't get too rattled. You don't want to put the blinders on and just focus on one thing. You have to see the big picture. And we operate very similar between guides and pilots in different environments that are forever changing, and we have to make critical decisions. I think that's what attracts a certain personality into our jobs.
Nice, gents. Chris, I'm going to take a second here and answer a question from the crowd here. Ben Jones has said, Pilot Man Chris, how much flight time did you have before you got your job at CMH? Are you also a fixed-wing commercial pilot? And do you work at CMH year-round, or do you have an off-season job? Chris?
Yeah, great question. And I think that is a little varied. I'll answer it as quick as I can. I was lucky to start flying in the mountains right away in my career, so that helped me. And then I probably had around 2,000 hours before I came to CMH and started flying the support ship. And I work for CMH generally just in the winters, but if I'm lucky enough, I get to do a little summer heli hiking.
Yeah, it's always good seeing you guys in the summertime too. Well, thanks for answering that question, Chris. And Steve, it's always a pleasure to hang with you guys, either virtually or in the flesh. We're going to see you back on here shortly for some Q&A. And now I'd like to roll a clip from Alpine Helicopters outlining some of their Class D, which is live loads, fixed line training. Take it away. Awesome. Well, Chris actually told me yesterday that was him flying that aircraft, and I'm grateful to say I've had the experience of flying under the helicopter, but mostly only for training purposes. Now, CMH is continually looking for new ways to enhance the skills of its guides. And in addition to our annual industry-leading guides training, we also have other development initiatives.
That's right, Brody. So over the past few years, CMH has hosted a series of guide development programs which have played a critical role in growing the confidence and skills in up-and-coming guides. These multi-day backcountry courses provide hands-on experiences to help participants through their accreditation journey. It's a unique opportunity to be directly mentored by our highly qualified team members, and investing in the next generation of guides is something that CMH is proud to be able to do. One of our long-term staff that recently mentored on a development course said that it was one of the most rewarding days of her career. Brody actually helped to lead that course at the Bugaboos. What was it like for you, Brody?
Well, first off, I think it was just such a privilege to be able to be a part of the program and try and share knowledge and experience. And yeah, I just really wish that this sort of training was available when I was going through my courses. So that's pretty cool to see.
Awesome.
So I guess now it's time to turn the tables over to you guys, the viewers, and we're going to ask our skill testing question from today's huddle. So the question is, get your ears on, name 2 of the 3 types of aircraft we fly at CMH. Again, name 2 of the 3 aircraft we fly at CMH. So hop on the live chat and throw your answers in. And while we're waiting for responses, we're going to bring Chris and Steve back on for our rapid fire questions. Perfect.
Let's dive into it. So, Steve, what is your favorite CMH lodge?
Oh, Allie, that's a loaded question. Well, in 26 years, I've been able to guide at all of them, but it'd be hard not to say CMH Revelstoke, of course.
Nobody is surprised to hear that answer, Steve. And for you, Chris?
Ooh, Allie, that's a loaded question. I better say the Bugaboo since this is where I'm working right now. No, I love the scenery and the people here.
You're going to keep your job, Chris.
And Steve, what is your favorite CMH meal?
I don't think there is a bad CMH meal, but if I had to pick one, Chef Brad or Chef Seb's filet mignon, roasted potatoes, broccolini, and Revelstoke. And yeah, that's a go-to for me all the time.
And can I assume that that's paired with a Pinot Noir?
Well, that's a good question, but I would usually go with a Cabernet.
Okay. And Chris, what about your meal?
Ooh, I better do a call out to Chef Robert here. He looks after me. The schnitzel.
Sorry, could you say that again?
The schnitzel.
The schnitzel. Perfect. And Steve, what is your favorite ski run at CMH?
Any run in the North Fork of the Jordan River in Revelstoke. But if I had to pick one, it would be Chivas Regal, no question.
Okay. And Chris, if you ever get the opportunity to get out of the cockpit, what is your favorite ski run?
I'm going to do it from a flying perspective because they don't give me many opportunities. But I love working in the Bugaboos, Rory Creek, and I would have to say French Tickler. It's just really user-friendly as a pilot.
Okay, great. And for our final rapid fire question, Steve, what does CMH mean to you?
Ooh, that's a tough one to answer in the rapid fire format. You know, I've done this for 26 years, as I've said a couple of times. I have met some amazing people. The team I get to work with every day is an amazing group of individuals. The guests that I've met over the years have become lifelong friends. And I think it's a community that I feel really supported by. I get up every single day, like beyond psyched to go to work. And I mean, that's a pretty good feeling to have, you know, with the job that you get to do. So yeah, it's something I want to do for the rest of my life. I love it. It's a fantastic place to work, and it's a great environment.
Hard to ask for anything more than that. And then Chris, what does CMH mean for you?
You know, again, like Steve, there's a lot of things, but I think team, friendship, a common purpose. We all take a lot of pride in what we do at CMH, whether you're a pilot or a guide.
That's great. Well, thanks so much for those answers, guys, and we really appreciate you both being here with us today.
Thanks.
All right, well,
thanks.
It looks like we've reviewed the responses from the skill testing question, and the first person that correctly answered in the chat bar is going to receive the swag. So again, the question was, name 2 of the 3 types of aircraft we fly at CMH. And the answers could be the Bell 212, the 407, or the 206, any 2 of those 3. And the winner is Paul Chesson. He correctly answered the Bell 212 and 206. Congratulations, Paulie. And we're going to connect with you and get your shipping address and send that stuff over to you. Okay, Allie, I'm going to get Graham back up, and we're going to take a couple of minutes to answer some questions that have come up recently.
Okay, and our first question is going to be for Brody. What type of feedback do you typically receive from up-and-coming guides after they've completed a development program with us?
Well, so many of the aspiring guides that partake in the training, they tell us all the time that the program is probably the best opportunity that they get for direct feedback in a non-exam scenario. And it really puts CMH at the forefront of training and development in the industry, and everyone really wants to get on board.
Great. Okay. And then next question is for Graham. I have a lot of friends who don't know if they would be ready for heli-skiing. What does it take?
Yeah, well, we have a powder intro program that is geared towards strong intermediate on-resort skiers. We're looking to build their skills in the backcountry and learn some powder skiing technique. Yeah, just have your friends call me and the sales team, and we'd be happy to find the right program for you.
Great. I too am a powder intro program person, so that's awesome. And there's a lot of questions that have been coming into the chat about what it's like to become a pilot, how to go through that, how to become a guide. So we'll address a couple questions, but I think just as a reminder, you're welcome to reach out to us at CMH at any point. You can contact Alpine Helicopters or the ACMG as well, and make sure that you're getting the information that you need to learn more about that. So Brody, why don't you tell us a little bit about helicopters and when the snowpack's really deep? Can the helicopter land if there's a lot of snow?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we have what we call heli flags out in the field, and what they do is give reference for the pilots. So a lot of times when the snow is very low density, it blows up and creates this giant powder cloud and can reduce visibility for the pilots. But the flags are a good reference point that are fixed on the ground that allow them to hone in and get onto the landing safely. And we also, when we're doing a flyover, we'll check the direction that the flags are moving in order to keep the aircraft with its nose into the wind most of the time. It's really important.
Okay, interesting. And then can you tell us how many guides are typically in a group and why it's set up like that?
Yeah, for sure. So most groups have one guide and their team of guests. And we usually run 3 to 4 groups per aircraft, just depending on what lodge and ski program you're in. And even up in the Caribous, we do have tail guides in some of the groups too. But in essence, if you think that group 1 lands on the run and starts skiing down, and group 2 lands behind them and starts skiing down the run as well, the guide in group 2 is essentially tail guiding for the group 1 guide. And our response time to fly back up to the top of the run allows us to get additional resources on site if they're required.
Okay, so there's a lot of guides.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of guides. We're a dime a dozen out there. I see another one here from Neil. He asks, how different is it for splitboard guides? Which that's a great question, Neil. Splitboard guiding is definitely a whole nother medium that requires a lot of foresight and looking far into the terrain. And splitboard guides have to be really fast on their feet to make quick decisions in low angle terrain in order to stay ahead of their groups efficiently and effectively. So there's an added level of advanced travel techniques involved with being a splitboard guide. Okay, so I think what we're going to do is bring Chris back on. It looks like there's lots of aircraft questions here. So let's pop Chris up onto the screen. Chris, I'm going to grab a couple of questions here for you.
Yeah,
There's one from Sergey, and he asks, all the aircraft maintenance is done by Transport Canada licensed AMEs and not by FFA ANPs.
Yeah, so, everyone's a licensed AME here in Canada. I mean, slightly different than the States, and I'm not totally familiar with their system, but all the maintenance is done, and we have a full-time engineer at each ski lodge who's a licensed AME that does all the work on both the aircraft and is certified on the types.
Nice. Okay, there's one here from Dustin. Chris, it says, do you guys regularly hire pilots or a certain time of year to look for applications?
Typically in the spring, because obviously summer conditions are easier to fly in than winter. So, I would just reach out to that person that they, get their resume and they forward it to either our Kelowna head office or Canmore head office. And that's generally when hiring starts.
Okay. And I'll read one more here from Brad. It says, hey, Chris, I've heard stories of people doing their heli pilot school and not being able to get any piloting jobs. Do you think this is specific to people or an industry-wide thing?
I would say it's industry-wide right now. Like a lot of schools, you can push a lot of students out and there isn't necessarily the work to support it. But if it's something you really want to do, I always tell people to go for it. But you have to be prepared that maybe you won't get a job, I guess.
Okay, and there is time for one more here, and it's one from Davis. He says, question for the pilots, what are the weather minimums you operate under for the heli-ski operation?
Yeah, so we have an operation spec and we do training with the PDM course, pilot decision making, and we're allowed to operate in half-mile visibility, clear of cloud, and with reference, obviously. So that's something that's within our ops spec of the company so that we can operate in sort of a heli-ski operation.
Awesome. Okay, well, that's all the time we've got for questions. Thanks, everyone, for submitting and everyone for answering. That's awesome. Now, before I wrap up today's huddle and before we say goodbye, I just want to touch on the topics of our next huddle coming up on February 11th. We'll have 2 new panelists on to describe our Summer Adventures program at CMH. We'll talk about the different lodges offered, as well as what it means to have a summer experience with us. Well, gang, from all of us keeping it tropical here in the Great White North, cheers, eh? And thanks for joining us on another fun, fact-filled episode of Virtual Heli Huddles.
Thanks for joining.
Thanks, everyone.